Are you happy with your hair now?
I'm always happy with my hair when I'm
Because
with
you
you,
were
my
like
love.
hat on, hat off, hair in, hair out.
It's a bit hot on the head.
Bit hot on the
Now,
head.
now I'm comfortable.
Now you're comfortable. All right, darling. Good for you. You ready to go?
Yeah.
It's that time of the month where Stevie B is back in the house.
Back in the house.
Where it takes twice as long to record a fucking podcast.
But twice as fun.
Twice as fun. Okay.
You'd laugh way more when I'm on the show than when I'm not on the show. Can we agree on that?
Well, yeah. No, I sometimes laugh with myself when I'm having a chat.
Today, we are talking about a topic that I think will relate to heaps of people out there, and it is how to healthily and consciously navigate through insecurities in your relationship, which many, many people deal with. I've dealt with it. You've dealt with it. I'm sure every human has dealt with it.
Yeah, actually. Oh, are we at share time? Because I immediately I've got things that I want to share.
Sure. I was just introing it, but let's rock and roll. Let's get it going.
I mean, why not get into it? Do you remember when you and I first got together? So I'm adding a story into the one that we agreed that we were going to do.
This is
I'm going rogue.
Okay.
I'm going rogue. Here we go. Here we go. I always like to plan it, and then as soon as we start, I'm like, fuck this shit. It's my show.
Except today it's ours.
Oh, as that Stevie B with the little dimple.
All right, let's rock and roll.
Okay. So do you remember when we got together? You said to me, we're at Bounce. It was at Mia's birthday or one of her friends' birthdays at Bounce.
Right.
And we were bouncing on the trampolines, and you were telling me the current friends that you had slept with.
Okay. I don't remember that, but yeah.
This right now is adorable. You're like, tick, 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 quick, 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 memory. You don't remember that?
No.
Oh, I remember that at the start of our relationship, you wanted to be honest.
Yes.
It was your intention to be honest.
Yep.
And to say that there are people in your life that are your friends, that are women that you have slept with.
Yeah, and my intention was that they can remain in my life,
yes.
And that's why I'm disclosing it. Yes.
Correct. And I had a little bit of a trigger city take place. Yeah, I did.
On the outside, you were like, yeah, cool, mate.
And no, I was not. I was not. I was not, because you were like, oh, I can see you, kind of going into a bit of darkness around this. But what was coming up for me was insecurity. I mean, yes, like in logical mind, it's like it shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, you chose me to be in a relationship with, but insecurity was coming up. And the way that I deal, or not the way that I deal with insecurity, is what was coming up for me as insecurity is, okay, well, what happens if I meet these people? Like, are they prettier than me? So I then compare. Insecurity comes up for me in the realm of looks and appearance. So I was like, okay, well, who are they? How old are they? What do they look like? Do they have blonde hair? Do they have this hair? Basically, I was looking to see if they were nothing like me, or if they were like me, like if you had a type. So either way, you were kind of going to lose based on my ego, because I'm like, well, if he's got a type, then he's going to try and find another type that looks like me and then fuck me off. Or if they don't look like me, then and they're all blonde and whatever, tall, etc., because I'm short and I've got brown hair, then he's going to want
leave
another.
You for them.
Correct.
Either way, I'm leaving.
Either way, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because that fits in very perfectly to my Enneagram number 4. I don't belong. He's going to fucking abandon.
Which fits in with today's topic, because today's topic is all about when people fear that their partner might leave them for someone else. And that all comes out of insecurity. And so today we're going to talk about an example of insecurity, and then how you can deal with that in a positive way that supports your relationship powerfully, or how you can fuck it all up and actually cause further problems in your relationship, which actually may then self-fulfill the prophecy of the person leaving you. Right?
Correct. Because imagine if that circumstance, like, let's use this example first, and then we'll go to the other example we're going to bring today. Imagine if if the insecurity had have taken over me, or if I had allowed insecurity to take over me, if I'm going to be responsible, then what I and what a lot of people, maybe even yourself, will do is become controlling.
100%.
You cannot fucking have them as your friends.
Mm-hmm.
You must delete their fucking numbers.
Mm-hmm.
From
Drain.
Again, amen.
Yep.
True.
100%.
So insecurity will turn into control.
And control becomes drainer.
Yeah.
And what's important to note of that topic, right, is that everything in life has energy, right? And that energy either attracts you to it or it repels you from it, right? And we've talked about this in relation to anything. Like I've even talked about it in relation to money, like just to jump off topic for a second, like that money has an energy, and if you're needy, it doesn't want to be near you, right? But if you're abundant and if you're open, then it's like, oh yeah, this is a person like that will take care of me, so it wants to come to you, right? So it's the same in any relationship. And in relation to this, like, yes, had you gone down that dark dysfunctional path, then you would have become a needy drainer, and I would have been like, oh my God, controlled, don't like it, get away from me, right? But you didn't go down that path. And we're going to show in this other example, another one from my perspective, about how I handled that, how my ego wanted to handle that, and then how I actually handled that.
I think the first thing to point out is that the label of the person being a drainer and, what words did you use? Drainer.
Controlling.
No, not controlling.
And just drainer.
Drainer, right.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is I'd say the slang, superficial terminology that you would use for someone, right? Not you, but we would all use for someone. They've been a fucking drainer, busting mud chops, you know? But with this episode, what we're also wanting to share is that what is happening underneath, like there's the surface level behavior of being needy and, you can't do this, you can't do that. What's underneath that is controlling, but what's underneath that is the insecurity.
Insecurity.
So
it's
not
always
feeling
insecurity.
worthy, or not feeling good enough, or not feeling you're perfect enough. So therefore you become controlling to compensate with that very uncomfortable feeling.
And what's important to note about that control dynamic is that you think that by doing that, you'll actually save the relationship.
Yeah.
But fundamentally what happens, as I said, is that if you flow it forward, right? So let's say person A and let's say person B. So person A is the one that goes down the control dynamic. So in that scenario, Kat says, no, I'm not comfortable with you seeing other women who you've slept with. No, why should you have women as friends when we're now in a relationship? Blah, 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 blah. Then, forces me to like not contact them, or says I want you to delete their numbers or whatever else. All that's happening in my mind is, hey, I've done nothing wrong. You're applying all these conditions on me. You're controlling me. That's yuck.
And
right?
If anything, you've done what is right by sharing.
Correct.
You've been honest. So then imagine that, you being honest with me, and then I'm punishing you for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then if you flow that forward, it's like, well, this is not someone who I want to be with. And then fundamentally the relationship will end, probably on my part. And then you've actually manifested exactly what you were fearful of, which is by allowing me freedom, you thought you would lose me, but by controlling me, you've lost me.
Oh, you did that well.
By backing yourself and by appreciating that you can't control somebody else and that all you can do is show up to your relationship as your best self, then you would have been happily with me and it would have been all good.
And
right?
that's what actually happened. So I remember that the first time of meeting these women that you were intimate with.
Oh, that was the other bit. I was so open. I'm like, I want you to meet them. So you understand that there is nothing here but friendship.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I will say that when I did meet them, probably especially one in particular who I knew, like, she really did have a soft spot for you. And even when we were together was saying like we would be good together. Remember? not going to obviously name names.
Yeah, we won't name names.
We won't name names. No.
I got a feeling I know.
Yeah, yeah. So when I met her, I definitely had my guard up. I was nice to her, but I could feel myself being like extra touchy-feely with you. Kind of like, fuck off, bitch. He's mine. You know, if I'm going to put it really bluntly. I was marking my territory, Steve being my territory.
Yeah.
And
it was
I
weird when you pissed on my leg. Like at that dinner party. I was like, okay, that's happening. That's happening now. You're just peeing on my leg. You see, you laugh more with me on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, I may as well have pissed on you. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So the other women who I met, I did have some resistance. I was like, oh, I don't want to fucking meet them. Why do I have to meet them? And I remember you were like, I'm going to invite one of them over for breakfast, or I'm going to go for a walk with one of them. So let's all go together. Or I'm like, you know what? I'll just meet them first and then you go for your walk together, because I don't need to be the fucking third wheel being like, okay, or now I want to watch what every conversation you're having. So yes, I was a little bit hesitant to meet them, but my guard softened. I was able to actually just meet them for them, rather than with the whole story of like, you've been with my man, were you better than me? Does she have bigger boobs than me? Is she blonde? Is she tall? Is she whatever? Right. But I will say that one where I basically did piss on your leg. I wasn't proud of my behavior that day. I maybe to the outside world, no one would have known, but in me, I'm like, I know what I'm doing here, and I am being insecure. That was my insecurity that was playing out. So I'll be honest with that.
So let's just unpack this for a second. So I think what's important to note here in this example, and then we'll see it again in the next one, is that Kat had no rational reason to feel insecure.
No.
There was nothing that I had done, no way that I had acted. There was no cracks in our relationship that would make her think that I would leave. So insecurity in this particular example, and in a lot of examples out there, is not rational. That's the important thing to note. And you have to be able to observe your ego. And when that comes up and go, okay, I can feel that it's there, but it's not rational. And be very careful about chasing that rabbit hole, because if you do, as we said before, it can often lead to causing more problems. So I'm not saying this in all cases. Like, there may be people out there who are in relationships where like their partner, is disconnected and like potentially like has cheated in the past or whatever. And it's like, fine, if this scenario comes up and you have every right to feel insecure about it, then I get it. And that's a whole other topic.
Correct.
But what we're talking about here is people who are in good relationships and healthy relationships, and things are coming up that are causing them to act in a way that is going to harm their relationship through irrational insecurity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'll give you one more example. So
because one's from my side, one's from yours.
Yeah, correct. So we walk on the beach every morning with our puppies. And I remember one day there were these two dudes walking towards us, and
it was during COVID.
And just to give you like a mental description, both Jamaican.
No, remember when we would see them many, many times, sprint up the hill.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, they're hot. Even our mate Tommy, who would walk with us, is like, oh my gosh, I want to be with them.
Yeah. Like, imagine like Usain Bolt, but like ripped.
Yeah.
And like a body that you would just be like, fuck, I'd love that body.
They were stunning.
And dreadlocks and tall and just like,
they had an essence and an energy about them that I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah. Sort of dude that like would like finish at the beach, throw his dick over his shoulder and then walk home, right? Like, you know what I mean? Anyway, so somehow Kat got chatty with these guys.
Yeah, there was
over
one
time
day,
saying hello.
one of them came up and said that we're talking to the dogs and said hello. And you were with me, I think, and they introduced themselves, and it It was just friendly.
Yeah, it's friendly. Nothing there.
No.
And then, so fast forward a bit, and then Kat came home one day and said, "Oh, I'm going to go for a walk with one of these guys." And I was like, "Oh, how did that happen?" And
no, so I was at
yeah,
our
I
local.
always forget.
Yeah, I was at the local cafe, and one of them was there at the same time, and we'd run into each other a couple of times at the cafe, and we'd always have like big long chats. And we actually said to one another, "It's so great to." Well, he actually said to me, "It's so great to have such an empowering conversation with the opposite sex and nothing be there." And we were talking about each other. I said, "I totally concur and agree." And he said, "I know you've got a partner. Why you got a smirk on your face?" You've got
no, I was so tempted just then to go, and then you banged it. It would be the perfect comedy drop in.
No, I didn't.
All right, continue.
He said, "I know you've got a partner, but it'd be really cool if we could like actually plan a meetup, you know, coffee, brekkie, or go for a walk."
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, "Oh, he'd be cool." And he's like, "No, out of just truly out of respect, I would like you to just double check." And I thought, that's nice, you know?
Yeah. So Kat
I
came home and said, "Hey, ran into this guy. I want to go and have a coffee or whatever whatever it was." Anyway, the point is that of course all the same things came up in my mind, right? I'm like, this guy is way better looking than me. He's way younger than me. I do not throw my dick over my shoulder when I leave the beach. Everything that you could imagine. But then I could feel like this resistance coming on. I was like, hang on a minute. This is bullshit, right? Like the reason why I guess I said to myself it's bullshit is because even if Kat meets up with this guy and they fall in love and she runs off and leaves me, that is out of my control. And me trying to control it is not going to change that fact. In fact, if anything, it might even push it closer to reality. So I basically said, I love this woman. I trust this woman. We've got a relationship built on trust. And so it doesn't matter whether it's a guy or a girl, her catching up to have a chat is not a big deal. Potentially if she came home and said, "Hey, I'm going on the town with drinks with these guys and you're not invited or whatever," that would be a totally different scenario. Because it'd be, well, hang on a minute. Like, why wouldn't I be invited? Like, if I'm your partner? Like I said, I'm not talking to everyone about exactly the same scenario. In your own circumstances when what we're talking about today actually relates and when it doesn't, because there's mitigating circumstances. But in this case of Kat wanting to go and have a chat with this guy, it was one of those defining moments where I could have gone down the path of, look, I'm not comfortable with that. Why would you need to go and see this guy? Like, you're in a relationship. Why do you need friends that are men? Blah, 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 blah. Like, and I'm sure, there's people out there going, "Oh, hallelujah. I've been on the receiving end of that and I just don't get it." But I chose to deal with the insecurity in a healthy way, which is one, I acknowledged it. I acknowledged the fact that these feelings were coming up.
Yeah, that's true.
And then two, I made a choice, which is to say, okay, am I going to act on this or am I just going to ignore it? And so next step was I chose to ignore it. I communicated to you.
Yeah, you did. You absolutely did. You said,
am I
"This is what's
super
coming up."
excited about you going off to meet with this hot Jamaican 6-foot sexy dude? Probably not amazingly excited by it, but at the same time, I have to, trust you and give you that freedom. And I guess the underlying thing in all of this is there's lots of people out there in relationships who just have this feeling one day that someone might leave them. And I think that's a human condition, right? I think we live in this world right now where there's always the next best thing, or, there's someone younger, better, richer, whatever it might be. And so there's always going to be this underlying thing that someone might leave you. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is it if you have that thought process floating around your head, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to let it like fucking throw a spanner in the works and like really get you to create scenarios and situations out of that like don't serve your relationship? Or are you going to acknowledge it, appreciate it, but not act upon it. Because like I said, no matter what scenario it is, when you start to get into control dynamics with your partner, generally the wheels will fall off the fucking cart, whether you know it or not. They'll either fall off the cart through the fact that they start to not tell you stuff because they know how you're going to respond.
Totally.
So that then leads to lying. That
and we've
then
had
leads
a friend
to cheating.
We've had a friend in their previous relationship that had the exact opposite of what we're talking about. A friend who is a very free spirit and was with a partner that was controlling, didn't want him to see certain people. And that's what ended up happening.
Totally. Because in the end, you won't live controlled. So the relationship will either end or you'll find a way to survive within it, which involves dishonesty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But he was honest in the beginning.
Correct.
He was honest. But then again, his honesty was punished. And that, I think, is that is not a kind thing to do when someone is, hey, I've got these women in my life who I've slept with, or hey, I saw that guy down the road who wants to catch up for coffee. Like that is pure. It's like going back to being a kid again, where you actually feel free and comfortable within yourself to speak your truth and to be honest, and for that to be met with control, that you've got some fucking work to do,
And if you are in that situation, like have the actual chat, like actually move through the process. So for example, like if we replay the cat situation with that guy, it was, so you would say, right,
hey, I saw so-and-so down the street. He wants to go grab a coffee. Are you cool with that? I remember saying he'd like to. I'd also like to. Are you cool with that?
Yeah. And then you would say, to be honest, the feeling that's coming up for me is I'm uncomfortable with that. And then you might say, why is that? And then I would say, so this is what I mean about actually play out this is not me going down the path of the dysfunctional approach. This is me actually talking out.
Deconstructing what's happening.
Correct.
So I would say, what's coming up for you?
The image of you banging this dude is what comes up, and the fact that you might find him better than me, and hotter than me, and younger than me, and more in line with you, right? And at that point in time, you've now shared, and your partner can then diffuse that irrational fear, like, or they can just go, well, that's fair. Maybe I will do that. But in this scenario, it wouldn't be, right? So you would say, look, I love you.
Yeah.
I've got zero interest in this guy. It's simply because I find him interesting. We've had some interesting chats and I just want to go and have a chat. Right.
And that's it. Like, that's actually what it is. And that's actually how long our conversation was for.
Yeah. But Kat is now also conscious of the fact that there is an insecurity there.
Yeah.
Not that I'm, allowing it to rule the relationship, but she's aware of that. So she can then move forward and I guess address that in a way.
But you also, I remember chatting with you about it, because when I was an ambassador for Lululemon for 5 years, like when I would do immersions with them and I'd be off for, 3 nights and whatever else, like they're an attractive, in terms of as a whole, they're an attractive bunch of people. Yeah. So, you were, at least on the outer, to me, very stable and secure. Was there any insecurity during that time for you?
No.
Interesting.
But there's a reason though. Like, I spent my 3 years between my relationship with my wife and my relationship with you learning to be okay with being alone.
Yeah.
And that was really important for me, because I think when you can land in that place where you're okay being alone, then you don't have as much need to control or to try and control the outcome of a relationship, because I know that if we broke up, it would be devastating, but I would be okay on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also think a little bit of that comes down to just some self-love.
Yeah.
Like, cool, if you meet someone and you fuck off, to me, you've made a mistake.
Yeah, I remember you've always said that. I actually think that's powerful.
You will wake up one day and you will think to yourself, fuck, I shat the bed. Like, I had a dude that loved me, supported me, was there for me. Might have been chubbier, But
oh, no, yeah, big your muscles are
yeah,
now.
that's now. But back then I was a bit of a plumper. But I think you need to have that self-love that, yes, I feel like, and the only reason I can say that is because I feel like when I show up into this relationship, I show up
Oh yeah, you do.
in all those ways.
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah.
And look, not everyone maybe is going to do that. That could be personality based. That could be just life based. But yeah, I mean, I think really what this podcast episode is about is to try and help people who are shitting the bed where it doesn't need to be shat on.
Correct.
Because of irrational insecurities. So if your partner...
I think with that though, just sorry to interrupt, insecurity in that moment is not going to feel irrational. It's going to feel very real. So yes, it is probably irrational in that circumstance. Again, depending upon the circumstance that someone's in. I know that our situation is probably going to be different to yours. We're talking about, like you said, that insecurity that turns into control, when it could be a healthy relationship, when it is a healthy relationship. So in that moment, insecurity, it feels very real.
Yeah, I'm talking in the wider terms of like, with universal looking in, you can see it's irrational, right? Which you won't see in the moment, which is why you need to take the breath and
slow it down.
To slow it down, to consider where is it coming from, and to communicate to your partner, right? Like, let them know what you're feeling and what's coming up for you. Give them the space to be able to address it. Rather
than punishing them and making them bad or wrong about what they have just brought to the table that was fairly neutral to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, all that being said, big asterisk on the entire episode. Yeah. Right? It is all based on circumstance. Like I said before, if you came home and said, hey, I want to go out with this guy for dinner, and then we're hitting the town on a Saturday night.
Correct.
I would probably say, could you please explain why you would want to do that when you're in a relationship? You saying, I'm going to get a coffee, have a chat with the guy, to me is not in the same league.
Yeah, I understand.
So it's putting things into...
Or if I went out for a coffee with him and was like, oh, just letting you know I went out for a coffee with that guy, then you would probably be like, what do you mean? You're like, you're telling me afterwards.
After the fact, yeah.
Or if I didn't tell you at all and you found out later, that's where all the asterisks come in.
Yeah, totally. And like in every other episode that we record, most of the time we always talk about the fact that good communication allows the space for further communication, which allows you to address issues. Because if you were going out for just that coffee, and then I was talking about all the reasons that I don't want it to occur and whatever else, like that's a conversation that has to be had, right? Like, why is that coming up? What is the gap in here that's not allowing you to trust?
Yeah. Bang.
Mic drop. Except I can't because it's stuck to the fucking boom. I reckon we've covered this one.
Yeah, I reckon too.
Until next month, thanks for joining, and I'll see you on the flip side.
And if you are loving podcasts, well, I know you are loving the podcast with Steve because they are the most listened to episodes because we're all in relationships and they're fucking difficult to navigate. We would love for you to send us your suggestions.
Yeah, send a question. I love those ones. Like if you send a question and we can try and help or...
Yeah, if you have questions, if you have a particular topic that you would love us to cover, and if we feel like we have the breadth to actually cover it, we will do so. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you because we just do.
Later.
Thanks, Stevie.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Au revoir. Ciao.
All right, let's wrap it up.